Today, we're really getting into some fascinating material. We've got a stack of sources focused on excerpts from the autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley.
Yeah, and these aren't just dry facts. What we have here are, really personal reflections, stories, direct insights from Malcolm X himself, plus Haley's observations. It's quite a powerful combination.
It really is. So our mission here is to explore some key moments, especially those transformations in his early life, try to understand how his views shifted, and pull out those surprising details that make his story so vivid. And we're sticking strictly to the material provided.
Okay, so where should we begin? Maybe his early life. The sources give some striking pictures of his time in Michigan, Lansing, and Mason specifically.
Right, particularly that time living with the Swerlins in the detention home. He talks about how he felt they saw him, or rather, didn't see him.
Yes, there's that quote about them not giving him credit for having the same sensitivity, intellect, and understanding they'd recognize in a white boy.
Yeah.
That's quite telling.
It says so much, doesn't it? This feeling of being with white people, but fundamentally not of them. Not always outright hostile, sometimes more like a, what did he call it, kindly condescension.
Exactly. And this led him to feel that, well, most white people, even the ones who seem nice, just didn't see black people as fully human in the same way they saw themselves. Like there was this fixed idea, maybe subconscious, that white was just better.
And that whole experience kind of sets the stage for his next big move, doesn't it? Going to Boston, to Roxbury, living with Ella, his older half-sister.
Ella, yeah, the sources paint her as this really impressive figure. Strong, outspoken, supportive. She told him, don't just jump into a job. Take your time. Figure out the city first.
Which was good advice. So he starts exploring Roxbury, especially the Hill area. At first, he sees the folks there, the Hill Negroes, as sort of high-class, educated, trying to be like white folks. The 400, they called themselves.
But his view on that changed pretty quickly, according to the text. He started seeing them more like just a big city version of the successful but kind of subservient black people he knew back in Lansing. Bootblacks, janitors, but maybe more. Brainwashed, as he put it.
Right. He felt they were too busy looking down on the people in the actual ghetto, the town section. And that's where he felt drawn.
That town part really captured him. He said he spent that first month just walking around with his mouth hanging open. The energy, people being themselves, not putting on airs, that appealed to him.
And the details he noticed are so specific, like seeing young kids gambling openly, seeing mixed-race couples just walking around together in bars, which was totally different from Lansing.
Yeah.
And the slang, learning all the new words.
Sud, cat, chick, cool, hip. Yeah, a whole new language.
And then he meets Shorty.
Shorty. In the pool room. Another guy from Lansing, a homeboy with the conch hairstyle. They connected immediately.
And Shorty kind of became his guide, right? Schooling him on the happenings, explaining things like a job being a slave, introducing him to the numbers racket.
Yeah, the whole scene. Shorty helped him out, gave him money. But Shorty had his own things going on, too. Learning sax, dreaming of his own band. He preferred small gigs, more freedom than the big bands offered. A hustler, yeah, but an artist, too.
And Shorty didn't hold back about the local tensions, like the dislike for the Hill Negroes, though he admitted Ella was okay. It was a real crash course in city life.
Okay, so from Boston, the next big leap is New York. Harlem.
Right, and he gets that job on the railroad pretty fast, selling sandwiches on the Yankee Clipper. That job sounds like a real education in itself.
Definitely. Dealing with white passengers all the time. He figured out pretty quickly how to play the game, putting on a bit of an act, that fake Uncle Tomming, he called it, to get better tips.
He felt white people were often just wrapped up in their own importance, and they'd pay to feel catered to. A cynical view, maybe, but probably pragmatic for him then.
And during his layovers, he just dove into Harlem. From Sugar Hill, where the celebrities were, down to the slum blocks. He saw it as like Lansing or Roxbury, but everything magnified. The poverty, the crime, but also this incredible energy.
Hanging out at Small's Paradise, the Braddock Bar. And that bright red conch, that's where he picks up the nickname Red. He's around musicians, hustlers, soaking it all in.
And the sources show him changing quite a bit during this time. He starts describing himself, looking back, as an uncouth, wild young Negro, cursing, talking back to customers.
There's that story about the drunk soldier on the train. He felt he verbally demolished the guy, like he'd whipped that white man as badly with a club as I had with my mind. And his steward, Pappy Cousins, apparently covered for him sometimes.
His whole look changed, too.
Yeah.
The wild zoot suits, the red conch, the knob-toed Florsheim's, the ghetto's Cadillac, he called them. He thought he looked sharp, but later saw himself as more of a clown.
And the lifestyle that went with it, drinking, smoking reefers, always out socializing, it wasn't sustainable. He lost that railroad job.
Yeah, complaints piled up. He bounced around a bit after that. Even went back to Lansing for a visit. Apparently shocked everyone with his Harlem Red persona. Then back to New York, broke. He mentions working as a busboy when Pearl Harbor happened.
Eventually, he gets a job as a waiter at Small's Paradise. That seems like a key place.
Oh, absolutely. Smalls was a hub. He observed all the hustlers there, like Jumpsteady the burglar. Jumpsteady was known for jumping roofs, using dope to work up the nerve. And in the ghetto, Malcolm observed, survival skills like that earned a kind of respect.
Smalls was even seen as a safe spot for white tourists wanting a taste of Harlem.
Right. And the rooming house he lived in, St. Nicholas Avenue, it sounds like a center for stolen goods, prostitution, drugs. He saw it as a place where people had to hustle and often needed to stay high just to cope.
He talks about learning a lot about women, maybe controversially, from the prostitutes there, even claiming they had a higher code of ethics about certain things than some other women, and learning about the cesspool morals of the white man from white women he met.
Which brings us to Sophia.
The white woman. Yeah, she became kind of a status symbol for him back in Roxbury for a while, helped him financially. It's a complicated dynamic described there.
And he meets Sammy the pimp, who gives this very cynical take on black men and white women, suggesting it's often about practicality for the women, marrying white for security while seeking something else, something taboo, with black men who were limited economically.
He even bumps into other guys nicknamed Red, St. Louis Red, Chicago Red, who is actually Red Fox. That's how he becomes Detroit Red to distinguish him.
Right, because Lansing wasn't as well known. He tries different hustles, briefly steering women for customers, but a scary run-in with military spy puts an end to that fast.
So then he gets into selling reefers.
Yeah, that became his main hustle for a while, selling to musicians, making decent money, 50, 60 bucks a day sometimes. He said it was the first time he felt really free, like a peer among the other hustlers.
Then his younger brother, Reginald, visits Harlem.
Reginald. Malcolm was really impressed by him. More cool, more self-possessed than Malcolm felt he himself was. He even advises Reginald on how to look successful to help his hustle.
And Reginald's hustle was pretty clever, wasn't it? Selling seconds, slightly flawed goods he bought legitimately.
Exactly. But he'd sell them in places like barbershops, making it seem like they were stolen, playing on that ghetto psychology, wanting a deal on hot items, all while having a peddler's license. Smart.
Reginald also preferred black women, which surprised Sophia, apparently, and he was supported by an older black woman. Malcolm really started to respect his brother's approach.
But things get heavier. He forms a burglary ring with Sammy. Then there's that incident where Sammy pulls a gun on him during a job.
Yeah, that destroyed the trust. He started relying more on Reginald after that.
He also gets into the numbers racket. His reputation helps him get in. And he learns about the connections, crime, police, politicians all tied together through graft, going back to the Dutch Schultz days. His boss's wife filled him in.
And his views on morality get even sharper here. He contrasts what he sees in Harlem with stories of upper-class white behavior call girls, key parties claiming that black people in the ghetto, despite everything, didn't do those kinds of things.
But that life catches up. He gets suspected in a holdup after a bar robbery. Thugs kick his door in. He has to flee to Michigan. That's when the conch incident happens, trying to straighten his hair, and it freezes.
He gets cleared eventually. Sammy sends a telegram, but the danger was very real.
He comes back to Harlem but stays away from steering. Gets sick, gets deeper into drugs, reefers, even opium. Smoking heavily, it sounds like a real downward spiral.
Until prison, which becomes this absolutely pivotal turning point as the sources describe it.
Yeah, that's where he encounters the Nation of Islam. His sister Hilda starts writing to him about their teachings.
Including things like Jacob's history.
Right, the doctrine that the white race was created as devils by a black scientist. A core teaching, the one that caused issues later, the source notes, when he traveled abroad.
His first letters to Elijah Muhammad, the NOI leader, he says they were poorly written. But getting a reply, seeing Muhammad's signature, he described the effect as electrical.
Muhammad's message really struck a chord, the idea that the black prisoner was a symbol of white society's crimes. Muhammad even sent him money.
And his family urged him to pray. He found that incredibly hard. Bending his knees. He called it the hardest test. because it reminded him of crouching to pick locks. He had to physically force himself past the shame.
The sources really convey his excitement before meeting Muhammad in person in Chicago, traveling there with other Muslims, feeling this intense spiritual anticipation. He contrasts the small group then with the huge crowds later, but says that feeling, that spiritual tingling, was never stronger than that first time.
And his first impression of Muhammad, small, gentle, almost frail-looking, but with this immense presence. He saw him as someone who'd suffered greatly.
Muhammad taught him about the blue-eyed devil white man, about brainwashing, about the black man being mentally, morally, and spiritually dead, but that his teachings would restore the original man.
And Muhammad singled him out in that meeting, acknowledged his prison time, used his story. That must have been powerful.
It solidified everything for him. He quit his job soon after getting out, dedicated himself to being a minister. He felt his past life was all just preparation for this.
He dives into study, worship, human nature, organization, the Bible, the Quran, all under Muhammad's guidance. He felt total awe seeing Muhammad as this gentleman wielding truth like a two-edged sword, cutting away sickness.
He uses the word adoration, but clarifies it as kind of fearful respect, like for the sun.
So he starts preaching in Boston. And he doesn't hold back. Uses that two-edged sword idea right away.
Absolutely. Talking about the devil white man, the crimes of Christianity, citing scripture, claiming 100 million black people lost. Very strong stuff.
And hammering on Christianity's failures, the segregation within churches. Defining Christian love as basically white self-love. Presenting Islam as the only real path to justice.
And around this time, the nation starts getting more public attention.
Yeah, things like Professor Lincoln's book and that big TV documentary, The Hate That Hate Produced.
The Muslims, including Malcolm, actually saw this media attention as a way to spread their message, even if it was critical, a tool to reach more people.
He'd already been writing columns, but then he starts the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, learns the whole process, though the source mentions this later caused some jealousy within the nation.
He also becomes Muhammad's envoy, traveling to Africa and the Middle East, finding leaders there were aware of the nation's work.
But that documentary, The Hate That Hate Produced in '59, that really put them on the map nationally.
Big time. And the reactions were strong. A lot of white people apparently agreed with the diagnosis of the race problem, but definitely not the white devil's solution.
And Malcolm X had to clarify that. He explained he meant the collective actions, the historical record of the white race acting like a devil towards black people, not necessarily every individual.
But the media attacks on him personally were intense. Demagogue. He says he didn't care about attacks on himself, but got furious when they attacked Muhammad.
He also clashed with black academics and social workers. He saw them as kind of disconnected from the street, paid by white systems, using their education just for status.
Yeah, he mentions that phrase, dynamic interstices of the Harlem subculture, and just scoffed at it. Felt it was intellectual talk that didn't translate into real change, unlike, say, white science putting people in space.
He started speaking at colleges, too, challenging history, saying Jesus wasn't white, citing ancient texts, predicting that kids would eventually learn the true color of historical figures.
And that encounter with the blonde student after a speech.
Oh.
Wow, she's upset about the white guilt discussion, asks if there are any good white people.
His answer, people's deeds I believe in, miss not their words. Then she asks what she can do, and he just says, nothing, and she cries. It's raw.
Shows the power and the difficulty of his message at that time, but his faith in Muhammad, still absolute. Muhammad even leaves him in charge during a pilgrimage.
Then comes that moment at Harvard Law School, looking out the window, realizing he can see toward his old burglary haunts.
He describes it as a tidal wave hitting him. The sheer distance traveled from petty criminal destined for jail or death to speaker at Harvard. He gave all the credit to Islam and Muhammad for lifting him up.
Which makes the next part, the break, even more wrenching as you read it in the sources.
Definitely. Rumors started about Elijah Muhammad's personal life. Malcolm describes feeling sick, like he was back in his hustler days, being played for a fool, terrified of scandal.
He mentions Dick Gregory making a comment backstage, and Malcolm just feeling weak, unable to deal with it, torn between loyalty and these awful rumors.
He couldn't go straight to Muhammad at first. He went to Wallace, Muhammad's son, who basically confirmed the rumors but didn't think his father could be helped.
So Malcolm broke protocol, talked to the former secretaries himself, hearing their stories, hearing Muhammad allegedly called him dangerous behind his back. That cut deep.
He felt silence was disloyal to the movement. He wrote to Muhammad, got an evasive answer.
So he tried to manage it, teaching about how great accomplishments can outweigh personal flaws, citing David, Moses, trying to prepare people without revealing the specifics.
But the sources say the leadership in Chicago twisted this, painting him as the one starting trouble, setting him up.
People noticed he was stressed. Even a white reporter told him, "Whites need your voice worse than Negroes." A strange moment of connection amidst the turmoil.
Then, while he's worried about that scandal hitting the papers, the news breaks. JFK is assassinated.
Muhammad orders ministers not to comment, but Malcolm says it anyway. Chickens coming home to roost. That becomes the official reason he's suspended.
But he told Haley the real reasons were jealousy and his refusal to ignore Muhammad's behavior.
Things escalate fast. The sources state the first direct order for his death comes down. A brother assigned to bomb his car warns him instead. That's when he makes the psychological divorce from the nation.
He's now marked for death by his former brothers. Haley describes him checking doors, saying flatly, "If I'm alive when this book comes out, it will be a miracle." Chilling.
After the break, he starts reassessing his strengths, his international profile, his following. He felt real leaders earn that, criticizing others for just wanting to integrate with whites, losing touch with the streets.
And his perspective keeps changing, especially after his travels, the pilgrimage to Mecca. He writes, "My life has always been one of changes." That trip to the Holy World seems crucial, seeing white people divided amongst themselves, feeling fully human before God for the first time.
Old memories surface, Hector's Hill, his prison cell, and the realization about putting any human on a divine pedestal, a dangerous thing.
His letters from that time show the shift. For truth, no matter who tells it. For justice, a human being first and foremost. For whoever and whatever benefits humanity as a whole. It's a broader vision.
But he's still seen as stirring things up, his response. The conditions, unemployment, housing, education, that's the sociological dynamite. It doesn't need a fuse, he said. It fuses itself.
Called the angriest Negro, he owned it. Said there was time for anger. Called a fomenter of violence. He denied wanting random violence, but absolutely supported self-defense, armed if necessary if the law wouldn't protect black people.
Which led to headlines like, "Malcolm X advocates arm Negroes." And his reaction was basically, yeah, what's wrong with a black man defending himself?
So this deep dive, using just these excerpts, really maps out an incredible arc of transformation.
You really see him grapple with race and identity from his earliest days, through the intensity of Harlem, the total commitment to the nation, and then that incredibly painful break leading him towards this wider human rights perspective.
Yeah, the sources show a life just constantly in motion, learning, adapting, always searching for truth, for justice, expanding from focusing on his people to really a concern for all humanity by the end of these excerpts.
It makes you think about his point on sociological dynamite, that the conditions themselves create the explosion. So here's something to consider. If those underlying conditions persist, what does it actually take to dismantle that pressure cooker instead of just dealing with the inevitable blast?
That's the lingering question, isn't it?